Hello you guys, this is an awesome lesson. It's really important, okay? So we're going to learn how to solve equations by clearing fractions and decimals. Let's first talk about how do we get rid of all those fractions. I mean, when you see a equation like this, 1/4 x plus 3/10 equals 2/5, your first thought should be, yikes, so many fractions, how do I get rid of them? Well, here's the trick. This is what we use in algebra all the time. First thing you do is look at all the denominators, the 4, the 10, and the 5, and you find the LCD, the lowest common denominator, of all of those. So I did it over here in the margin. So if I had 4, 10, and 5, I would see that 2 goes into 4 and 10, so I circle the 5 and bring it down, and then divide those by 2. So 4 divided by 2 leaves me 2, 10 divided by 2 leaves me 5. And then with 2, 5, and 5, well, I know that 5 would go into those two, so I'm going to circle the 2 and bring it down, and then divide the 5 out, so I get 2, 1, and 1. So now my lowest common multiple, or lowest common denominator, would be 20, because 2 times 5 times 2 times 1 would give me 20. So now here's what I do. I use that 20 and I multiply it by every single term to get rid of all of the fractions. So check this out. I'm going to use the 20 and I use the distributive property. So I do 20 over 1 times 1/4 x plus 20 over 1 times 3 over 10 equals 20 over 1 times 2 over 5. All right, now watch what this does. Now I showed you the long way here, but pretty soon when you get good at this, you can do a lot of it in your head, and I'll show you in class. But here's what's going on. See the 4 and the 20? They cancel out. 4 goes into 20 5 times, so that gives me 5x. Then I bring down the plus, and then look at the 10 and the 20. 10 goes into 20 2 times, so 2 times 3 gives me 6. Then I bring down the equal sign, and then look at the 5 and the 20 over here. 5 goes into 20 4 times. 4 times 2 gives me 8. So this whole big ugly equation just became 5x plus 6 equals 8, which is a whole lot easier to solve. So then I'm going to subtract 6 from both sides of the equation, and that gives me 5x equals 2, and then I divide both sides by 5, and that gives me x equals 2 divided by 5, which is just 2/5. Okay, so look at the checkpoint. Now remember, I wrote everything out so you could see what was happening, but I'll show you how quickly we can do this in class, all right? But look at number 1. 1/3 x plus 5/6 equals 7/9. So remember, get the LCD of 3, 6, and 9. Well, you could probably do that in your head. 9 is the biggest one. The next multiple of 9 is 18, and that will work for all three. So 18 is the LCD of 3, 6, and 9. So now I'm going to use the 18 over 1, and I'm going to multiply it by every single term. Okay, so I wrote it here. So 18 over 1 times 1/3 x, then bring down the plus. 18 over 1 times 5/6, then bring down the equals. 18 over 1 times 7/9. Okay, now watch what happens. Start at the denominator. 3 goes into 18 6 times. 6 times x is 6x. Bring down the plus. 6 goes into 18 3 times. 3 times 5 is 15. Bring down the equal sign. 9 goes into 18 2 times. 2 times 7 is 14. So this whole thing became 6x plus 15 equals 14. And now we just solved that. So I want to get rid of the adding 15, so I subtract 15 on both sides. That leaves me with 6x equals -1. And then I divide both sides by 6, so that gives me x equals -1/6. And I'm done. Okay, take a look at number 2. I have 3 over 10 plus -7/15 x equals 2/3. So the first thing is I have to get the lowest common denominator of 10, 15, and 3. So of course that would be 30. So I'm going to use 30 to multiply. So 30 times 3/10. That's what I wrote here. Then I brought down the equal sign. And then 30 times -7/15 x. I wrote that here. Bring down the equal sign. And then 30 times 2/3. Okay, and now always start at the denominator. Look at the 10 and look at the 30. 10 goes into 30 3 times. 3 times 3 gives you 9. Bring down the plus sign. Start at the 15. 15 goes into 30 2 times. 2 times -7x gives you -14x. Bring down the equal sign. Start at the denominator. 3 goes into 30 10 times. 10 times 2 gives you 20. So this whole thing becomes 9 plus negative 14x equals 20. And now you solve it like a regular two-step equation. Subtract 9 on both sides of the equal sign. So that gives you negative 14x equals 11. And then divide both sides by negative 14. So that gives you x equals negative 11 over 14. Okay, so now let's talk about how do we clear decimals. Take a look at this. 2.75 equals 6.15 plus 0.4 m. Because the greatest number of decimal places in any of the terms with decimals is 2, multiply each side of the equation by 10 to the second power, or 100. Because remember, that's going to move the decimal to make everything whole numbers. So watch, if I have 2.75 equals 6.15 plus 0.4 m, I just decide to multiply everything by 100. And so 100 times 2.75 gives me 275. Bring down the equal sign. 100 times 6.15 gives me 615. Bring down the plus sign. 100 times 0.4 m gives me 40 m. And now I just solve that. So I get rid of the adding first, so I'm going to subtract 615 on both sides, so that gives me negative 340 equals 40 m, and then I divide both sides by 40, and so I get m equals negative 17 over 2 if I reduce, I showed you over here, or you could say negative 8 1/2, or as a decimal, negative 8.5 is the answer. Okay, now they probably want the decimal because look at how they gave us the equation. They gave us the equation as decimals, so they're going to want the decimal answer. You can just go ahead and lightly cross out example 3, and let's go on to the next. Okay, take a look at example 4, solving an inequality by clearing the fractions, all right? So remember, if we're going to clear fractions, we have to look at the denominator. Look at the 6, the 12, and the 6. Obviously, 12 is the LCD, so I'm going to multiply everything by 12. And notice how I showed you that. Now, I wrote it out here so you could see it. 12 times negative 1 over 6m, I wrote right here. And then I brought down the minus sign, and then 12 times 5 twelfths, and then I brought down the inequality, and then 12 times negative 5 over 6. Okay, then remember, the trick is always start at the denominator. Look at the 6, and then cross it out up here. So 6 goes into 12 2 times. 2 times negative 1m is negative 2m. I brought down the minus sign, which is weird, I know, but I brought it down, and then 12 goes into 12 one time. 1 times 5 is 5. I brought down the inequality and then start at the 6. 6 goes into 12 2 times. 2 times negative 5 is negative 10. So this is my new inequality. Negative 2m minus 5 is less than or equal to negative 10. So now let's get rid of the minus 5. So we're going to add 5 on both sides of the inequality. So that'll give us negative 2m is less than or equal to negative 5. And now let's divide both sides by negative 2. And remember, when we multiply or divide by a negative, the inequality switches. It flips around. So that gives us m is greater than or equal to 5 over 2, or 2 1/2. Okay, so let's clear these fractions. So take a look at number 3. I see 11 in the denominator, an invisible 1 in the denominator, and a 3. So I know the LCD of 11, 1, and 3 is 33. So let's multiply everything by 33. So 33 times 4/11 x, I wrote right here. Then I copied the plus sign, and then do 33 times 1 over 1, and then copy the inequality, and then 33 times 2/3. I wrote that right here. Now remember, the trick is start at the denominator. Start at the 11. 11 goes into 33 3 times, then bring that over. 3 times 4x is 12x. Copy the plus sign. Then you could start at the denominator here, but 1 goes into 33. 33 times 1 is just 33. Then bring down the is less than, and then start at the denominator. 3 goes into 33 11 times 2 is 22. So now let's get rid of the adding 33. We're going to subtract 33 on both sides of the inequality. That gives us 12x is less than negative 11. And then let's get rid of the 12, divide both sides by a positive 12, so that is x is less than negative 11 twelfths. Okay, take a look at number 4. To clear the fractions, I have to get rid of 7, 4, and 2. So 7, 4, and 2, the lowest common denominator would be 28. So I'm going to multiply everything by 28. So 28 times 3/7 x, I wrote that here. Then I brought down the plus, and then 28 times 1/4, I wrote that right here. Then I brought down the inequality, and then 28 times 1/2, I wrote that over here. And then start at the denominator, start at the 7. 7 goes into 28 4 times. 4 times 3x gave me 12x. Bring down the plus, then start at the denominator. 4 goes into 28 7 times. 7 times 1 is just 7. And then bring down the inequality, and then start at the 2. 2 goes into 28 14 times. 14 times 1 gives you 14. So now let's get rid of the adding 7. We're going to subtract 7 on both sides of the inequality. So bring down the 12x, bring down the is less than, and 14 minus 7 gives you 7. So now let's get rid of the 12, divide both sides by 12, so x is less than 7 twelfths, and you're done.